Have you ever heard of jobs that sound too wild to be real? From ice cutters hacking through frozen lakes to lamplighters keeping gas streetlights aglow, these fake occupations once powered our daily lives. And they're about to make your jaw drop. In today's video, we'll explore 15 unbelievable careers that vanished almost overnight, thanks to modern technology. If you're fascinated by history's quirkiest professions, you've come to the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, smash the like icon, and ring the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Drop a comment below telling us what time it is in your country right now. Picture yourself stepping onto the porch at first light, hoodie zipped, coffee steaming in one hand, and 2 frosty glass bottles resting beside your shoes. Each bottle glints under the street lamp's last flicker, crowned by a metal cap that pops with a soft hiss when you twist it free. A ribbon of cream rises to the neck, promising the richest morning pour you've ever tasted. Down the block, a boxy truck rumbles at a crawl. White uniformed driver at the wheel, his practiced wave letting you know he saw the note you left, requesting an extra pint for tonight's chowder. The day begins with that reassuring ritual. He is more than a dairy courier. As he swaps your empties for full bottles, he asks how your toddler handled her first day of preschool and reminds you that Mrs. Patel could use help repairing her gate after last night's storm. He notices the flickering porch light across the street, jots it on a clipboard, and resolves to mention it to the homeowner tomorrow. His route doubles as a rolling neighborhood watch, each driveway visit reconnecting the invisible threads that hold a community together. Without ever setting foot inside, he knows whose pansies have wilted, whose dog slipped the leash, and whose birthday calls for chocolate milk instead of regular. Then, progress barrels in. Affordable refrigerators promise week-long freshness. Supermarkets stretch their aisles into fluorescent labyrinths, and efficiency seduces you into a single Saturday shopping marathon. You trade clinking glass for waxed cardboard, human conversation for a barcode scanner, and the milkman's whistle for a generic aisle announcement lost in overhead speakers. At first, the change feels convenient. Soon, though, the porch is eerily quiet at dawn, and you catch yourself missing the crunch of tires on gravel, and that predictable knock signaling the world outside your door is still friendly and awake. You shrug, telling yourself progress always brings trade-offs. Yet a quiet loneliness seeps in, the kind you notice only when a comforting, dependable rhythm disappears forever from your mornings. Consider what vanished when the bottles stopped arriving. Prices fell and shelf life rose, but the small talk that stitched neighbors into allies evaporated. The milkman served as morning alarm, community bulletin, and assurance that someone who knew your name was keeping an eye on the block. Without him, houses became islands, connected by nothing sturdier than Wi-Fi signals and hurried greetings at the big box checkout. You gained minutes yet surrendered belonging. As the video carries you through more vanished occupations, keep that porch-side memory close. Each story that follows contains a similar blend of service, trust, and daily cadence that technology quietly unraveled. When you recall the cool heft of a glass bottle and the friendly nod of someone whose livelihood depended on your satisfaction, ask yourself which modern conveniences are worth the warmth they replace. By looking back with clear eyes, you can decide how to carry the best parts of yesterday into the unstoppable momentum of today's world. You set the handset gently against your ear, the heavy Bakelite cool on your cheek, and a warm, steady voice greets you before you can even clear your throat. Operator, how may I connect your call? In that instant, a stranger becomes your guide across miles of copper wire. You picture her at a tall wooden console, rows of jacks winking like tiny stars while she slides chords with practiced grace, bridging one conversation after another in less time than it takes you to blink. She recognizes your number from the subtle click of the line and recalls that you tried reaching your sister in Chicago yesterday. "Still busy over there?" she asks, a hint of friendly concern threading through the headset. Just as the milkman once wove a neighborhood together at dawn. The switchboard operator knits towns, families, and businesses into a living web of shared sound. She remembers the doctor's emergency line, the grocer's late-night order, the soldier's voice trembling as he asks to be patched through to his sweetheart during a brief furlough. When a storm drops poles outside the county, she reroutes calls around the damage, her fingers dancing in rapid code so news of downed wires never reaches your anxious ear. Her console becomes both map and heartbeat, its soft clacking a lullaby of human intent. Each plug a promise that someone will be heard. The technology is simple by today's standards. Manual switches, cloth-covered cords, and enough muscle memory to rival a concert pianist. Yet the service feels almost magical. You never dial a 10-digit labyrinth, never fight robotic menus that feign understanding. Instead, you confide a name or a town, and she fills in the silent spaces between, translating desire into connection. She corrects mispronounced villages, spots reversed digits, and notices the tremor in your voice when you request the hospital extension after midnight. Her questions are brief but careful, as though she's holding porcelain. Collect or paid? Priority or routine? Are you safe? Then, gradually, the telephone company unveils self-service dialing. Plastic rotary discs appear in living rooms, promising speed and privacy. You marvel at spinning the wheel yourself. Yet the quiet afterward feels unfamiliar, even lonely. No friendly operator warns you your cousin's line is still engaged or offers to try again in 5 minutes. Wrong numbers multiply, mistakes no longer cushioned by a patient human buffer. The cords, once a physical reminder that people, not machines, carried your words, disappear behind sealed junctions you'll never see. Progress shaves seconds off every call. But it also shaves off the gentle reassurance that someone sits at a switchboard ready to untangle your crossed wires, literal or emotional. As you swipe to answer sleek glass screens today, compare that transaction to the warmth woven into a simple, "Good evening, how may I assist you?" The memory of that voice reminds you that communication isn't measured only in bandwidth or latency, but in the empathy riding along the line. If the milkman taught you the value of shared mornings, the operator teaches you the worth of being truly, attentively heard, and challenges you to bring that attentiveness into a world that increasingly settles for instant, frictionless, and faceless exchanges. You shuffle across a frozen lake at dawn, breath crystallizing in sharp gusts, steel-toothed saw braced across your shoulders. The moon still hangs low, pearled and fragile, while you test the surface for the rhythmic thump that whispers the ice is thick enough to bear hope and livelihood. Just as the switchboard operator in the last story threaded distant voices through copper, you prepare to string summer's comfort through the coming months, one shimmering block at a time. You plant your boots, lean into the cut, and the blade begins its growl. An iron metronome marking the promise of future shade. Each stroke is an act of faith in approaching heat. Weddings that will crave chilled lemonade, fevers that will require cool compresses, fishmongers who depend on crystalline insulation to keep their catch sweet. You haul the blocks to a low-roofed icehouse at the shoreline, stacking them like glass bricks and burying them beneath sawdust so they will survive August. The labor is punishing. Fingers numb to stone, back clamped tight, lungs raw from cedar smoke inhaled beside the brazier you huddle around, just long enough to remember warmth and fear it. Still you carry on, because entire towns revolve around the certainty that, come July, someone will have wrestled winter into storage for them. Throughout the season, you read the lake like a cartographer, mapping fissures and currents the way the operator reads tone and hesitation. When a late February thaw whispers danger, you accelerate the harvest, making sure no family discovers melted butter and spoiled cream because you misjudged the weather's mood. Your neighbors rarely see your face, only sled tracks etched in snow. But they speak about you with the same gratitude people reserve for electricians after storms. Where the operator gifted empathy along a wire, you gift relief in a sweltering kitchen, proving that survival depends on strangers who master invisible systems, whether technological or natural. Then the first refrigeration motors begin to hum in the city. Factories spit out coils and compressors, promising ice at the twist of a dial. Newspaper ads parade sleek appliances across the page, boasting that homeowners will never again rely on fickle winters or men swinging saws in bitter wind. Orders for lake ice collapse within a decade. Ropes fray from neglect, the ice house stands hollow, and the lake gradually forgets the grid you once tattooed across its surface. Along with the job goes a communal sense of seasonality, the reminder that winter and summer, hardship and comfort, arrive only through shared effort. Progress hands you your own gleaming fridge, and you trace its polished door with hesitant pride. Yet in that effortless chill, you hear faint echoes. The rasp of a saw on moonlit ice, the gentle click of cords in a switchboard cabinet, the milkman's early whistle. They caution that convenience is never free. It charges belonging as its hidden fee. Remember that before every effortless luxury lay someone's dawn-cold labor, and decide which memories of struggle are still worth preserving. You duck beneath the neon sign that flickers like a half-remembered dream, stepping into a bowling alley that smells of machine oil, buttered popcorn, and Friday night possibility. Behind the polished lanes, you squeeze through a narrow doorway marked "Employees Only," emerging into a cavernous back room where the clatter of falling pins shakes dust from the rafters. Fluorescent tubes cast a ghostly glow over wooden platforms lined with triangular racks. This is where you earn pocket money and a strange sense of purpose. Crouched like a sprinter behind a lane, muscles coiled, waiting for the crash that signals your cue. The ball thunders through 10 white soldiers, scattering them like startled pigeons. You leap forward, heart hammering, clearing splintered pins with a sweep of your arm before returning each one to its perch in crisp formation. Your timing must be flawless. Hesitate, and the bowler out front grows impatient. Rush, and you risk a wayward ball bruising your shin. The rhythm soon embeds itself in your bones. Sweep, set, scuttle back, pull the reset lever, repeat. Between frames, you catch fragments of laughter drifting through the pin deck like radio static, and you realize you're orchestrating fun you rarely glimpse firsthand. Much like the ice cutter storing winter for strangers he'll never meet. Under the clang and hiss of machinery, your ears tune to subtler sounds. The hollow thunk that tells you a pin is cracked. The metallic click of a coin sliding into the ball return, the low groan of worn floorboards that warns another pin boy is hustling past. Each night cements a silent brotherhood. Teenagers in hand-me-down work shirts, trading jokes over the drone of fans while chalking tallies on the concrete wall. Who cleared a 7-10 split fastest? Who dodged the most gutter ricochets without losing a toenail? The pay is modest, but the pride in mastering this hidden ballet feels priceless. A reminder that even unseen labor can pulse with camaraderie. Then, during a slow summer, management installs towering pin-setting machines imported from Detroit. You watch a crew of technicians bolt gleaming mechanisms into place, their arrangement of gears and belts promising tireless precision. At first, you're relieved. The bruises will fade. The late-night shifts will vanish. But the hum of automation quickly outshouts your nostalgia. With a button press, The alley floor shivers. Steel fingers pluck pins upright, and your roll evaporates faster than lake ice beneath a July sun. By autumn, the back room stands eerily still. Ghosts of chalk tallies lost beneath a coat of fresh paint designed to reassure customers that progress is spotless. You stroll the now silent platforms one last time, fingertips brushing grooves worn by countless sweeps of your arm. In that hush, you remember the operator's gentle voice, the milkman's early whistle, the saw teeth biting frozen water. Each story a caution that convenience often erases the rituals that anchor us to one another. As you exit into the alley's bright din, you vow to notice the invisible hands still threading today's world together before another invention asks them to step aside and surrender their rhythm to a flawless, impersonal machine. A warm, earthy fog of curing tobacco greets you the moment you step onto the factory floor, mingling with the rhythmic scrape of wooden workbenches and the soft rustle of wrappers being trimmed. You settle onto your worn stool, blade poised, when a clear, resonant voice rises above the din, strong enough to command attention, yet gentle enough to glide between the clack of shears. The lector climbs a small dais at the room center, opens a carefully folded newspaper, and begins the day's reading. Yesterday, he recited an adventure novel that painted jungles and steamships in your mind. Today, he starts with headlines about labor reforms, his cadence turning dry type into living pulse. Where the pin boys sprint within the bowling alley choreographed joys unseen by patrons, the lector orchestrates imagination and solidarity in plain sight. His words stitch dozens of solitary tasks into a single shared experience. When he pauses for a sip of coffee, you realize you've rolled 3 flawless cigars without glancing at your hands. The story's protagonist escaped a cliffhanger just as smoothly as your leaf spiraled to a perfect close. Around you, nods and murmurs confirm others felt that collective lift. The lector is more than entertainment. He is teacher, journalist, and moral compass rolled into one, translating a world many of you may never touch into ideas you can still wield. He curates literature that mirrors your hopes, struggles for dignity, romances that bloom despite hardship, heroes who topple petty tyrants. During lunch, he invites debate, encouraging shy packers to question plot twists and seasoned rollers to dissect political editorials. His platform becomes a classroom without walls, persuading you that knowledge, like the aroma of fresh tobacco, should drift freely rather than stay locked away for the privileged. In those spirited discussions, you feel the sparks of collective identity, the same electric camaraderie that pin boys whispered about between frames, but writ larger and louder. Management eventually notices the emboldened conversations, the whispered comparisons of wages in other factories, the newfound fluency in legislative jargon. Radios arrive soon after, fixed to a single music station approved by corporate headquarters. Loudspeakers drown the lector's unfiltered commentary in cheerful jingles, and policies forbid spontaneous readings for safety. The dais gathers dust. The lector is reassigned to inventory. At first you welcome the dancing trumpets and crooning crooners as a novelty, but soon the melodies blur into background haze. Without shared storytelling, the room feels wider, yet curiously lonelier. Each bench an island, each worker tuned inward, as you roll cigar after cigar to the beat of tinny jazz. You catch echoes of the lector's baritone delivering a passage that once made you reconsider injustice. You recall how the pin boy's quick reflexes preserved celebration, how the ice cutter stored winter's mercy, how the switchboard operator bridged fear and comfort, and how the milkman wove mornings together. In every case, human presence transformed routine into ritual. You wonder which voices today still nourish that invisible weave, and how quickly convenience could silence them if no one insists on listening. You glide across a marble lobby past polished brass railings, briefcase in hand, pulse racing from the city's morning rush. A pair of accordion gates slide open like theater curtains, and a neatly pressed uniform beckons you inside the mirrored cage. "Good morning," the elevator operator says, tipping his cap as though this 30-second ride were the start of an ocean voyage. One hand rests on the burnished lever. The other hovers above an array of round, ivory buttons. As soon as the gates clack shut, the hum of cables surrounds you, and the operator eases the car upward with the poise of a maestro lifting his baton. Between floors, he does more than mind machinery. He senses the nerves of a young applicant smoothing her collar and offers a conspiratorial wink. He notices a tenant's limp before anyone else and slows the car's arrival so the jolt won't jar tender knees. Names, gossip, and gentle reminders trade places as quickly as floor numbers. The florist's shipment is delayed. The tailor left your suit ready for pickup. Management will test the fire alarm at noon. All the while, his grip on the control arm is instinctive, calibrating speed so the elevator nestles flush with each landing. No sudden lurch, no toe-catching gap. The ride feels strangely intimate, a narrow capsule where strangers share second-hand confidence. Yesterday's lector turned printed words into common cause. Today, this operator turns vertical travel into a brief sanctuary. You step out lighter than you entered, buoyed by the intangible reassurance that someone noticed you in the swirl of downtown anonymity. Without this ritual, you might never have learned Ms. Gonzalez on 12 keeps bees on the roof, or that Mr. Turner on 7 secretly sketches jazz musicians between insurance claims. The operator stitches such fragments into the building's invisible social fabric, one smooth ascent at a time. Soon, chrome elevators arrive, boasting automatic doors and illuminated call buttons. Engineers promise greater efficiency and round-the-clock availability. At first, you marvel at self-service freedom, pressing a button without waiting for the cap's nod. Yet with the convenience comes an awkward stillness. Strangers stare at floor indicators instead of each other. No cheery greeting cuts through the silence. No practiced eye catches your joyful glow or your exhaustion before you step onto the corridor. Misaligned stops become common, and maintenance crews paste signs warning riders to watch your step. You do, and suddenly you miss the sure-footed operator who watched for you. Progress replaces personality with an algorithm of arrival times and weight limits. The operator's lever, once polished by countless reassuring gestures, gathers dust in a display case alongside other antique controls. Riding upward now feels like gliding through a sterile tube, efficient but empty. You recall the lector's silenced dais and the pinboy's abandoned racks and wonder how many more spaces will lose their quiet guardians. Each innovation trims another human thread from daily life, and you're left to decide whether faster always means better, or whether some journeys are worth slowing down long enough for a voice, a nod, or a perfectly timed stop that tells you someone is glad you made the ride. You step out of the elevator and into a sea of staccato clicks, the rhythmic chatter of dozens of typewriters rising and falling like rain on a tin roof. Here, speed is currency and precision is law. You slide into your assigned seat, align your carbon paper, and rest your fingers on keys worn smooth by repetition. A supervisor paces the aisle with a stopwatch, her sharp heels keeping tempo with the machines. She calls out quotas, 12 pages before lunch, error-free. One stray letter, and you'll have to roll the sheet out, crumble it, and start again from the salutation. The office air smells of ink ribbons and mimeograph solvent, tinged with the distant hum of freshly automated elevators delivering another stack of dictation. Just moments ago, an operator guided you skyward with a reassuring nod. Now you feel the weight of that absent gesture as you attack each line of text. You know the operator's lever has been replaced by circuitry. Yet every flawless carriage return you perform feels like an echo of his perfectly aligned landings. Both roles demand invisible mastery. Both are vanishing. Your touch becomes a blur. Wrists hovering, carriage bell chiming at the margin like a conductor's cue. The pool around you is an orchestra of clacks and dings. Every typist part of a synchronized effort to turn executives' scratch into pristine copy. You learn to anticipate phrases before they're spoken, to decipher mumbled dictation, to patch holes in grammar without drawing attention. At break, you trade tips on removing ink smudges with nail polish remover and argue over whose Underwood has the lightest touch. There's pride in knowing you can hammer out 110 words per minute and still center a title by eye alone. Yet rumors drift through the clamor. New word processors arriving soon, screens that show letters before they meet paper. Some colleagues scoff. Machines can't match a trained ear, can't sense when a sentence is crying out for a comma. Others whisper about courses in data entry, the possibility of working while seated in quieter cubicles. You're torn between dread and curiosity. You remember how automatic doors stole the operator's lever and wonder which familiar sounds will vanish next. One afternoon, IT technicians wheel in a beige monolith topped with a flickering green monitor. Management gathers everyone for a demonstration. A manager deletes an entire paragraph with a keystroke, then restores it just as fast, grinning as if revealing a magic trick. Gasps ripple through the pool. Fingers that once flew confidently now twitch uncertainly. You realize the bell at the margin, that faithful metronome, will soon fall silent. Still, as you return to your desk, you straighten your shoulders. Whether pounding keys or coaxing pixels, clarity and care remain your craft. You glance toward the elevator lobby and picture the operator's cap resting on a hook. A reminder that skills can migrate even when job titles disappear. You vow to carry the discipline of clean margins and flawless drafts into whatever tool comes next, believing that behind every screen, just like behind every set of polished brass gates, there is still room for a steady hand and a mindful human touch. You punch out from the clacking typewriter pool and escape the haze of solvent and ribbon ink, grateful to trade the office's humming fluorescence for moonlit asphalt. Your sedan rattles toward a brightly lit filling station, its glowing sign promising more than gasoline, promising relief after a day spent hammering keys to someone else's rhythm. You ease beside the pump, kill the engine, and before you can swing open the door, a crisp, uniformed attendant is already there. Hat brim tipped in greeting, white-gloved hand raised as if ushering you onto a stage. He calls you friend, without a trace of irony, and asks, "Regular or premium tonight?" While the pump's analog dials spin, he flips the hood latch, checks your oil, and tugs the dipstick through practiced fingers. Your radiator cap gets a quarter turn, wiper reservoir a fresh gulp, tires a quick thump and a hiss of air for good measure. A squeegee glides across your windshield, erasing insect carnage and office frustrations alike. In those brisk, methodical movements, you recognize the same discipline you just exercised, aligning margins and striking carbon. Only here, the rhythm smells of petrol instead of paper. Conversation slips easily between you. He guesses you work downtown because your cuffs are dusted with graphite from the note-taking steno pad you keep in your bag. He asks if the new elevator buttons are as finicky as rumors claim, then tells a joke about a driver who confused transmission fluid with mouthwash. Laughter ricochets off steel bumpers and neon glass. You realize he's memorized not just engines, but stories. The traveling salesman who always tips extra on Thursdays. The young mother who worries her balding tires won't last the school year. The elderly veteran who wants his headlights aligned true north out of superstition. Each tank he fills becomes a brief confession booth. And with every nod, he signals that your small concerns deserve care. Inside the kiosk, a radio crackles news of distant conflicts and closer technological triumphs. Self-service islands popping up along the interstate, pumps designed for customers to swipe, grip, and go without ever meeting another soul. The attendant rolls his eyes good-naturedly, yet traces the outline of those changes the way you once traced new word processing keyboards arriving in the typing pool. He shrugs. Progress, they say. You both know the phrase is a prelude to vanishing routines. Months later, you pull into a refurbished station where LED numbers blink impatiently. No white gloves greet you, only a laminated decal instructing you to lift the nozzle and prepay. The air hose sits coiled like a forgotten garden snake, and the window washer bucket is dry. You manage fine. Fuel flows, receipt spits. But the ritual's warmth has bled away. As you drive off, you catch your reflection in the glass door, one more solitary figure navigating an efficient system that seldom bothers to ask how the day went. The memory of that uniformed attendant sticks with you, reminding you that service can be a conversation, not merely a transaction. Just as the hum of electric typewriters taught you to honor precision. His quick smile taught you to appreciate caretaking that runs on more than octane. In a world rushing toward frictionless speed, you resolve to pause long enough to notice the people who still tighten a cap, wipe a pane, and ask, sincerely, "Anything else I can do for you tonight?" You leave the self-service pump behind, palms still smelling faintly of gasoline, and cruise toward the old Art Deco theater you've loved since childhood. Neon letters buzz overhead as you hand your ticket to an usher whose tuxedo seems a size too large for his teenage shoulders. Popcorn crackles, velvet curtains ripple, and you sink into a red plush seat while the house lights dim. High above and just behind you, hidden behind a square of frosted glass, someone cues the feature. Someone whose craft is equal parts engineering and stage magic. That someone is the projectionist, and he's already pacing a private perch no wider than a city bus. You picture him threading 35mm film through a maze of sprockets, rollers, and guide arms, feeling each perforation slide into place with a satisfying whisper. His fingers are stained with graphite grease. A faint burn mark on his forearm recalls the time a xenon lamp cracked mid-reel. Yet his movements are almost balletic. A deft twist of the focus knob sharpens the skyline on screen. A subtle shutter adjustment erases a jitter you'd never consciously detect. He times reel changeovers to the flicker of cigarette burns in the top right frame, switching projectors so seamlessly you never see the splice. You only notice the story continuing without interruption, believing that continuity is the theater's natural state rather than the result of vigilant eyes. Between reels, he checks gate tension, wipes dust from an aperture plate, and makes a scribbled note about a splice that could snap under heat tomorrow. All the while, he listens for the hush of the crowd, laughter cresting during a slapstick gag, a collective gasp when a villain steps from the shadows. Those distant reactions validate each mechanical decision, turning bolts and loops into emotion. Just as the full-service attendant once caught your mood in a windshield's reflection, the projectionist gauges thousands of tiny flickers to keep illusion intact. The digital age arrives first in multiplexes across town. Hard drives replace metal canisters, automation systems cue films with barcode scans. The owner boasts that shows now start on the dot. Payroll drops, image quality is laser perfect. But perfection comes at a cost you feel even before the trailers roll. Patrons trickle into auditoriums lit by garish pre-show ads, unattended projectors humming like refrigerators. When a server hiccup freezes a scene mid-kiss, the delay drags on forever because no one is stationed upstairs to diagnose it. You catch yourself longing for the unseen guardian who once rode gain and frame lines with the intimacy of a heart monitor. On a final screening night before upgrades, You slip past a rope and climb the narrow stairs to the booth. The projectionist, hair flecked with silver nitrate memories, lets you watch as he laces the first reel. The film flutters like a ribbon of captured starlight between his hands. "Movies aren't just pictures," he says, aligning the sprocket one last time. "They're promises." When the lights dim and the beam ignites, you understand he means a promise that someone is still watching closely, ready to rescue the story if it wobbles. You vow to notice such guardians wherever they survive, knowing progress should never run so far ahead that it forgets the quiet craftsman who once turned machinery into wonder. You step out of the theater into night air, still vibrating with soundtrack echoes, your eyes adjusting from silver screen brilliance to a softer glow lining the avenue. Each pool of amber light feels almost cinematic, yet the real artistry belongs not to the film you just watched, but to the man nearing the next lamp with a long brass pole balanced on his shoulder. He moves with a projectionist's quiet precision, coaxing flame where darkness threatens, making certain every doorway and cobblestone is brushed with warmth instead of shadow. You slow your pace, drawn by the ritual. He tilts the pole's hook, opens the glass pane, and touches a small pilot wick with a taper already glowing at its tip. A muted pop, a slender bloom of fire, and the mantle flares to life. He lingers just long enough to trim the wick and wipe soot from the chimney, like a booth operator fine-tuning focus until each frame on screen sings. Then he lowers the pane, checks that the flame burns steady, and tips his cap before moving on. Behind him, the street transforms. Storefronts sharpen, stained glass transoms glimmer, faces step from the gloom wearing easier expressions now that the unknown corners have retreated. The lamplighter remembers who prefers brighter doorsteps, who rises before dawn to bake bread, who just welcomed a newborn, likely to wake for midnight feedings. His notebook is smudged with such details. Maintenance schedules, overdue rent warnings, stories extracted during casual greetings. He is equal parts technician and watchman, steward and storyteller. When fog curls off the river, he dims each burner slightly so the refracted light won't blind carriage drivers. When an early winter gale rattles panes, he checks latches to be sure no flame escapes its cage. In every gesture, you recognize the same guardianship that kept film reels from snapping above your head moments ago. Soon, however, city engineers will unveil electric arc lamps. Their blue-white glare promises longer intervals between service calls and fewer soot stains on building cornices. Demonstrations draw crowds. Investors applaud the savings. Yet you notice how the new luminaires buzz instead of flicker, how they erase nuance by flooding everything with clinical brightness. They do their job, night retreats. But the streets feel suddenly flatter, as if overexposed. No one lingers to chat with the crew replacing bulbs from a cherry picker. There is nothing human to witness, no flame to coax. Watching the lamplighter finish his route, you sense he already reads his own obsolescence in the wiring strung overhead. Still, he pauses at the final fixture, polishing the glass until it shines like a freshly struck coin. He seems determined to leave behind a standard, light that invites rather than interrogates, glow that nods to passers-by instead of glaring at them. You tuck the image away alongside the memory of the projectionist threading film. Two craftsmen guarding night from chaos, one with fire, one with light spun through celluloid. And you wonder, as progress quickens its stride, who will guard the guardians when their quiet competencies are no longer required? But their absence is felt all the same. Sunrise leaks over the rooftops the lamplighter tended hours ago, and you push off the curb on a single-speed bicycle. Front basket rattling with still warming ink in yesterday's city caught in columns. The street is hushed, save for squeaking pedals and the soft crumple of newsprint against rubber bands. Shop shutters are drawn. Stray cats skulk for bakery scraps. And dew freckles the headline that will shape breakfast conversations. Your route winds like a stitched seam through sleeping blocks. Each porch a square in the quilt you maintain before the world fully wakes. You have learned to read houses the way the lamplighter reads flame. On Maple, the retired sergeant wants his paper wedged behind the planter so it won't soak in sprinkler runoff. 2 doors down, a medical intern prefers hers lobbed to the second-floor balcony. An impossible arc, you now land 9 times out of 10. The widow in the corner bungalow leaves a nickel taped beneath the mailbox each Friday. You pocket it gently, mindful of the shaky handwriting on the envelope she addresses simply, Paper Boy. These tiny preferences become a code, a quiet dialogue that unfolds without words, yet assures each resident they are seen even before their curtains part. Your timing is choreography. Ride, stand, toss, coast. Along the steeper hill you dismount, jogging beside the frame to keep momentum while preserving the pristine fold of the final editions. A misthrow could dunk a sports section in someone's koi pond, so you favor underhand spins that land softly, absorbing shock like a lamplighter's gloved hand against glass. By the time sun flares full over the eaves, every doorstep flaunts a tidy roll banded in red, not unlike the neat halos of light left glowing in night's retreat. At school later, ink still shades your fingertips, proof of labor classmates seldom recognize. They click open news apps at lunch, oblivious to the pre-dawn miles that once delivered headlines to their parents' porches. Rumors swirl that the publisher will soon cut residential routes, citing rising fuel and cheaper digital subscriptions. You imagine porch lights blinking to life with no paper beneath them. Conversations shrinking to algorithmic feeds. Neighbors no longer borrowing sections over hedges. Just as electric arcs replace the lamplighter's tender flame, push notifications threaten to eclipse your silent salutation of rolled pages. Yet tomorrow you will rise at 5 again, tucking knotted plastic sleeves against forecasted drizzle, because ritual weighs more than efficiency. You'll note how the lamplighter's final wick still burns pale blue against the brightening sky, and you'll feel part of an unspoken relay. One guardian passes the night to the next, ensuring stories, whether whispered by flame or printed in boldface, reach those who need them. As long as a single porch awaits that familiar thud of newsprint, you'll pedal the dim streets, delivering proof that the day has indeed begun, and that someone cared enough to bring it to their door. You shoulder your satchel heavy with yesterday's headlines and step through the library's oak doors, the scent of aged paper greeting you like an old friend. Sunlight filters through stained glass panes, dust motes dancing in the beams as you cross the marble floor toward a long, curved desk, topped with neat rows of wooden drawers. Each drawer bears a brass plate stamped with a Dewey number, and you know the slightest whisper of wheels on carpet means the catalog keeper is already at work. You've seen her before. An unhurried figure bent over a card, glasses perched on the tip of her nose, pencil in hand. Today, you find her extracting a card for Moby Dick, tracing its call number before sliding it between 2 others like a chemist mixing reagents. Her fingertips bear tiny ink stains, reminders of the countless annotations she's made. Cross-references to related topics, shelf locations for new acquisitions, even a small note about a patron's request for more mystery novels. She listens for the quiet tap of boot heels echoing across the stacks and greets you with a nod mouth that says she already knows whether you're hunting physics treatises or late fee notices. You hand over your request, Mrs. Alvarez's recommendation for local folklore, and she searches without haste. The drawers slide open and closed in a hushed rhythm, each movement deliberate, rhythmic, almost musical. She pauses at one drawer, flips through a fan of cards, and pauses again as though reading the subtle indentations left by patrons past. Then she plucks the correct card, signs you out on a stamped slip, and tucks both back into her apron pocket. In that exchange, you feel the weight of centuries of scholarship and the personal touch that transforms cataloging from mere organization into stewardship. Later, as you wander between aisles, you notice she's already returned Mrs. Alvarez's folktales and filed a new card for the poetry collection you requested last week. You glimpse her silhouette through the stacks, the careful way she aligns each drawer in a uniform grid, her head tilting as she listens for a cough or a question that might need extra guidance. She knows not only where every book lives, but also the stories behind your searches. Unspoken drives for answers, curiosity about worlds both familiar and distant. Then, one crisp morning, the library unveils a new computer terminal in the reference wing. A manager clicks through an online catalog. The screens glow, promising instant results from hundreds of miles away. Patrons circle the terminal, tapping keys instead of riffling cards. Drawer handles gather dust. You watch the keeper lean back, arms folded, as someone else demonstrates keyword searches and digital filters. Her brow furrows, not in anger, but in the same attentive concern you once heard in the switchboard operator's voice. Within weeks, the wooden cabinet is repurposed for seasonal maps and brochures. The keeper retires her pencil and retreats to a small office, overseeing digital metadata instead of card entries. The new system is faster, undeniably efficient, but it hums in isolation. No more measured slide of drawers, no soft scrape of index cards offering unexpected connections. The library hums with silence, broken only by clicking keys. Yet as you trace your finger along the empty rows where brass plates once gleamed, you remember the cue they offered, a promise that someone cared enough to guide your search by hand. In a world speeding towards screens, you resolve to carry that memory with you, seeking not just information, but the human hands that once arranged it with care. You shoulder a burlap sack that feels heavier than any book you ever carried past the library's silent rows, and you step into the early morning gloom. The roadway is slick with frost, and your boots crunch against scattered coal nuggets as you climb into the back of a battered delivery truck. As you settle among the humped bags, you remember how the catalog keeper learned every call number by heart. Now you learn every street by sight, an intimate map of porches and cellars that depend on your load to keep their fires alive. At the first stop, you ease the sack from your shoulder and hoist it down the stoop, noting the brass plaque that reads 402. Inside, you can almost hear the librarian's soft whisper, guiding your fingers through drawers. Here, you're guided by the crackle of coal against wood as you tip the bag and rake the shiny lumps into the waiting bin. You pause to ask the widow if she needs more kindling, because a warm hearth is more than heat. It's comfort. The same way pulling the right card from a catalog felt like introducing someone to a hidden world. As dawn brightens, you swing from door to door, each delivery a conversation. A young mother greets you in slippers, thanking you for timeliness. An elderly couple nods from behind frosted glass, trusting you with their winter warmth. You watch the steam rise in the cold air, forming little clouds that drift toward bare branches. Your route isn't timed by a computer, but by human need. Who woke up shivering, whose fire sputtered overnight, whose stove door squeaks and could use oil. You learn that Mr. Park's daughter collects coal for her school's science project, and that Mrs. Ruiz always leaves a chipped mug of coffee on her porch rail. In exchange for a heavy load, you carry these small stories with you. Midway through, a snow squall reduces visibility to a few feet. You tighten your coat, recall how the library's keeper cherished order and routine, and you apply the same calm to churning drifts. You guide the truck around frozen puddles, then trudge doorwards with snow in your hair. treating each porch light as you would a catalog drawer's brass handle, with respect and care. When you finally pour the last sack into a rickety coal bin, the family inside cheers, and you feel the warmth of gratitude outpacing the sting of cold. By midday, news spreads of new gas heating systems that promise cleaner flames and less backbreaking labor. You watch a salesman install gleaming pipes through a neighbor's stucco wall, marveling at the speed and quiet of the burn. Later, you return to that house and find the coal bin empty and abandoned. The hollow metal echoes under your knock. Progress feels like relief at first, until you realize that the new system can't ask after Mrs. Ruiz's arthritis or remember that Mr. Park's daughter needs extra fuel for her project. As twilight falls, you drive past the library where the catalog once lived, now shuttered and repurposed. You pause by its grand doors and imagine the keeper's soft taps on card edges, and you feel kinship in ritual, even as it fades. Then, you climb back into your truck, where the diesel engine hums in place of human voices, and head toward the next delivery on tomorrow's route, eager to bear weight, share stories, and keep alive the human touch that no machine can replicate. You duck inside from the chill of winter past, the late afternoon sun fading beyond frosted windows as you step into the living room's half-light. A muted glow from the television set, the focal point of every evening's gathering, casts shifting shadows across threadbare carpets and overstuffed sofas. You approach the console, its wooden cabinet warm to the touch, and lift the hinged back panel where rows of vacuum tubes stand like stalagmites in miniature caves. Their glass envelopes hold the promise of vibrant images and clear sound. But tonight one flickers uncertainly, threatening to plunge the room into silence. You sit on the edge of a sagging armchair, tools laid out beside you like surgical instruments. A voltage tester, a small screwdriver set, needle nose pliers. Carefully, you test each tube's filament, listening for the faint hiss that signals proper current. You swap a weakened picture tube with a fresh replacement, cradling it as if it were blown glass from a Venetian workshop. As the new tube warms, the screen awakens to a crisp line and then to full broadcast. A crackling western scene comes into focus, horses crossing dusty plains under a vast sky. For a moment, the family crowding behind you breathes a collective sigh, relief that their window to the wider world remains intact. But your service goes beyond mechanical fixes. You remember Mr. Alvarez next door, who stays up late listening for baseball games. You recall Mrs. Chang up the stairs, whose grandchildren's fuzzed faces need to be gently centered each evening. You adjust the antenna's direction on the roof, eyeing the distant broadcast tower, nodding as the signal sharpens. You realign the horizontal hold knob so that the children, sprawled on the floor with coloring books, can trace every cowboy silhouette without distortion. Every twist and turn of the dials resonates with a shared understanding that television is more than entertainment. It's the thread that binds families through laughter, surprises, and communal awe. Progress hums at the edges of your work. Neighbors whisper about transistor radios and the promise of portable screens that require no bulky consoles. Reports filter in of color broadcasts on the horizon, color that will demand new tubes and fresh calibrations. Some evenings you find the repair shop's bench half empty, as sets retire to the scrap heap and households weigh the cost of repair against the lure of a sleek replacement. Still, you treat each television as a living thing, coaxing unstable circuits back to health with the same patient touch you once gave coal-stoked furnaces or the librarian once gave each card slot in her catalog. On a particularly cold morning, you assemble a final repair at dawn, replacing a cracked glass tube that threatened to plunge a lonely widower's apartment into darkness. As you pack up your tools, he offers you a steaming mug of coffee and mentions that the screen's gentle flicker eases his thoughts at night. You nod, understanding the comfort that comes from a steady image dancing across glass. Comfort you once carried in sacks to fuel that night's hearth warmth. Both services deliver heat of a kind, one by embers glowing red, the other by electrons shimmering blue. Driving home, you pass abandoned coal bins and shuttered repair shops, their window decals peeled away. You think of the lamplighter's final wick and the milkman's early whistle, of each vanished guardian who tended common needs before efficiency moved in. Your hands still smell faintly of solder and cleaning solvent, and you feel the weight and the honor of being one of the few left weaving technology into daily life. After all, progress may replace components, but it takes a human hand to restore the spark that turns a house into a home. As you've journeyed through the hidden rhythms of these forgotten careers, from the milkman's dawn rounds to the projector's silent vigil, you'll notice how each vanished role wove warmth and connection into daily life. Now, it's your turn. Share in the comments which bygone occupation fascinated you most, or what memories it stirred. Thank you for listening tonight. May these stories guide you into a peaceful sleep, reminding you that even unseen hands once shaped our world. Rest well, and good night. Sweet dreams.